you have on the Western side having this claim that if only we had more long-range weapons, that we would bring Russia to its knees, and we can strike, etc. But you see, the much smaller Ukraine has been relentlessly hit with these long-range missiles all the way through since at least October 2023, nonstop. And it hasn't brought them to the knees. So what logic does anyone claim the much larger Russia with its much more capable air defense is going to be brought to its knees in any capacity by a much tinier percentage of drones and missiles? It's just a fantasy that we fill ourselves with. It gives false hope.
Yeah, wow. That is a really important point that I have not heard described like that, but I think that it should be brought up because you're right. You have NATO in this position where it's, we just have to do X, Y, Z, right? Whatever the thing is. Right now, it's long range missiles. And you have the US in this position where, yes, of course, Trump campaigned on ending this war, then it became his war. Now he's saying, I've got plans to talk to everyone, right? He's going to continue talks with Russia. He's going to talk to Europe and Ukraine. And he continues to try to play this role of third-party mediator in a war that the U.S. is directly funding as he's signing off on more long-range cruise missiles for Ukraine. So how do you view the position that the U.S. is in and kind of how much longer they can keep this going? Because they're, sending weapons to everybody, but our production capacity, not just the United States, but all of NATO's, is nothing like Russia's. And so it just kind of seems like it is a matter of time until, exactly as you were describing, Ukraine gets so worn down that their military just falls apart.
Yeah, and there's a second aspect to that too. It's we already, if the war ended today, by most estimates, I've seen a couple of different ones, it'll range between 5 and 7 years for us at current production capacity to get back to where our stockpiles were at the beginning, or what we think they're supposed to be, if it stopped today. But it's not. And in fact, it's continuing on, but at a much, much slower rate. I think Ambassador Whitaker on Fox News about a week or 10 days ago said, we're giving about $1 billion of worth of weapons per month to Ukraine. And that's what they're going to continue to buy. And you got this program where NATO, Europe is going to pay for these weapons. Then we'll ship them off and they'll end up in Ukraine. If that continued on, you got to say, okay, our industrial capacity already can't replace what we have lost, and our stockpiles are dangerously low. And now you're giving $1 billion a month. The only thing is left is you can have a handful of production, but then that means the rest has to come out of stockpiles. There's not enough to go around to do that. So not only is there the issue that the Ukraine side itself is being ground down by the drones, the missiles, and the glide bombs from the air power, et cetera, and the troops at the front line, you also have a dwindling capacity on our side that won't be able to maintain the flow even that it has. So you have these twin pressures pushing down on the Ukraine side. And again, every way you look at it, there just isn't the capacity to even stop the loss, much less even have a theoretical possibility for Ukraine to win. Ergo, there should be no rational reason to continue the war on the Ukraine side, because all you're going to do is basically guarantee their destruction.
Yeah, that's what it seems like at this point. And it's as if the US looks at it and it thinks, okay, we're going to weaken Russia at some point, right? It just keeps at it and it keeps at it. And I look at this and I know that, obviously Russia's in this position where they want to make sure that they are guaranteeing the safety of the ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine. That's what all of this was about at the start. They also want to make sure that NATO is not encroaching on their territory, even though it has continued to do exactly that. But when it comes to just how far NATO is willing to get into this, I mean, the talk about European countries wanting to send troops into Ukraine as quote unquote peacekeepers, that's incredibly concerning to me because they don't seem to have a red line, whereas Russia's made it very clear what its red lines are, and that is one of them. So what are your concerns about how far NATO is willing to go into this versus looking at it and kind of realizing, which Trump seemed to at the beginning, to realize, hey, maybe we should get out of this. And instead, he turns right back around and doubles down and just keeps going.
I don't have a good answer for that last part about why Trump came in, all fire and brimstone. I'm going to end this in 24 hours and then 100 days and then all right, well, that passed. All right, well, how about 50 days? Or well, maybe 10 days. All right, well, a couple of weeks and all the deadlines pass, nothing ever happens, and he keeps going. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. But that's what we have. In terms of the other part, though, the red lines, I think that the real red line is capacity. And this issue of so-called reassurance force or peacekeepers or whatever tag you want to use, I think that is nothing but just rhetoric. And I think Russia knows that. And I think Russia doesn't have any concern about this. So that's an area I don't have any concern, because the Western countries don't have the troops to put there, even if they wanted them. I think that Sean Bell from Sky News, a former military person in the UK, recently had a graphic that he put up on the screen. He said, listen, you would need, and he showed all the reasons why, you'd need a force of about 300,000 people total, because that includes troops that are on the ground, troops that are trained to go to the ground, and then troops that they have to, just like the United States did during the war against Iraq, et cetera. You have to have this rotation system going to maintain this. So you have to account for 300,000 total troops. And it's really more than that. But he said, let's just look at that number there. And then he said, now, which countries have the troops to do that? So he said, if you took all the deployable forces in the UK and France, that gets you about 20% of the way there. 20%. And that's if they gave everything they had to deploy, meaning they've gutted their national defense for the defense of Ukraine alone. And they're not going to do that. And they're certainly not going to sustain that. And then where are the rest of them going to? Because most of the other countries like Italy or Belgium, they're not talking about putting any troops in there. Even Germany is like going, yeah, we'll give you some missiles and some Taurus, but about the man, I mean, they're struggling just to get their own coffers filled in their recruiting, et cetera. So there isn't a reassurance force. It's all on paper and blah, blah, blah coming out of these leaders' mouths.
Yeah, it's very concerning all around when you watch how much they're willing to talk versus how much they can actually back it up as they continue to get themselves further and further in this hole while picking fights all around the world. I know that there is certainly a lot at stake here all around, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today to break down all of the latest here. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, a combat veteran, national security analyst, and host of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. Thanks so much for your time and insight.
Always my pleasure, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
If anything in this video resonated with you, be sure to like it, share it with your friends, leave a comment. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to keep up with all of my work, make sure that you're subscribed to my page on Substack. That's rachelblevins.substack.com. That's where you'll find ad-free videos and new weekly episodes of my exclusive series for paid subscribers called Sanctioned. You can also check out Sanctioned over on my page on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Rachel Blevins. As always, thank you all so much for all of your support, and I'll see you next time.